a world where manipulation lurks around every corner, how do we arm ourselves against those who seek to control our thoughts and actions? Imagine this. You're in a conversation, and suddenly the dynamics shift. You feel it, that subtle pull, the way words twist and turn like a serpent. This isn't just small talk, it's a game, a battle of wills. As Marcus Aurelius wisely noted, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. But what happens when others try to invade that mental fortress? Epictetus teaches us the importance of distinguishing between what we can control and what we cannot. So, how can we identify these manipulators? What signs should we be looking for before we get caught in their web? Consider this. Every encounter is a chance to practice our Stoic principles. It's not just about defending ourselves, it's about recognizing the patterns and regaining our focus. Every time you sense someone pulling your strings, remember, you hold the reins. Are you ready to take back your power? Let's dive deep into this timeless wisdom, exploring the art of resilience in the face of manipulation. Understanding human nature. You know, one of the most eye-opening aspects of Stoic philosophy is its focus on understanding human nature. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, emphasizes that people will do what people do. It's a simple yet profound truth. When you think about it, this means we have to accept that some people are inherently manipulative. They might not even realize they're doing it, or perhaps they do and just don't care. This acknowledgement is crucial because it helps us to step back and not take their actions personally. Instead of getting swept up in their drama, we can choose to rise above it. Recognizing the weaknesses in human nature also invites us to practice compassion. It's easy to get frustrated when someone tries to manipulate us, but if we can see that this behavior stems from their own struggles or insecurities, it becomes a little easier to manage our reactions. After all, understanding that manipulation often comes from a place of fear or need can help us maintain our emotional equilibrium. It's like a shield against the negativity that other people bring into our lives. Moreover, accepting this aspect of human behavior allows us to maintain our composure. We can remind ourselves that just because someone is trying to push our buttons doesn't mean we have to react. In fact, we can respond with calmness and rationality, which not only disarms the manipulator, but also reinforces our own emotional stability. When we understand the motivations behind people's actions, we can approach situations more thoughtfully and strategically. This acceptance also means we can prepare ourselves mentally for potential encounters with manipulative individuals. Instead of being blindsided by their tactics, we can approach these interactions with a sense of awareness. It's about knowing that manipulation exists and being ready to face it without losing our cool. In doing so, we empower ourselves to set boundaries and maintain our integrity. Finally, the most liberating part of understanding human nature is that it places the onus back on us. We cannot change others, but we can change how we react to them. By recognizing that people will act in their own ways, we can focus on our own responses, ensuring we don't get caught up in their emotional games. It's about cultivating a sense of inner peace that remains undisturbed by the chaos around us. Self-control and emotional resilience. Epictetus had a way of putting things that just make sense. He said, "It's not the things that happen to us that disturb us, but our opinions about them." This idea is incredibly empowering, especially when dealing with manipulative people. The moment we realize that our emotional reactions are primarily rooted in our perceptions, we can take a step back and gain some perspective. It's all about training our minds to respond rather than react. Cultivating self-control is not just about biting your tongue when someone provokes you. It's about creating a mental space that allows for thoughtful responses. When faced with manipulation, the instinct might be to lash out or defend ourselves. However, by exercising self-control, we can pause and assess the situation. This moment of reflection can be the difference between escalating a conflict and diffusing it. Instead of letting our emotions dictate our actions, we can choose a path of reason. Emotional resilience is a skill that can be honed over time. It's about bouncing back from adversity without letting it define us. When dealing with someone who is trying to manipulate us, it's essential to remember that their actions do not determine our worth or our emotional state. By developing resilience, we can view their attempts at manipulation as mere distractions rather than as a reflection of our value. This mental shift is crucial for maintaining a sense of self amidst external chaos. Keeping clarity in our emotions means we can identify triggers and patterns in our interactions. By understanding what provokes us, we can better prepare ourselves to handle similar situations in the future. It's like having an emotional toolkit. We can pull out the right strategy when faced with manipulative tactics. This proactive approach allows us to remain calm and collected, even when others are trying to draw us into their whirlwind. In the end, self-control and emotional resilience are about protecting our inner sanctity. When we master these skills, we create a fortress around we become less reactive to the whims of others and more in tune with our own feelings. This not only enhances our interactions with manipulative individuals, but also improves our overall quality of life. We learn to navigate the complexities of human relationships while staying grounded in our own truth. The art of emotional distance. When I think about navigating relationships, especially with people who have a knack for manipulation, I can't help but recall the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius. He often emphasized the necessity of focusing on what lies within our control. This idea resonates deeply with me, particularly when I find myself tangled in the emotional web spun by manipulators. Establishing an emotional distance is not just a recommendation. It's a survival skill in the tumultuous sea of human interactions. Creating this distance allows me to step back and assess the situation objectively. I've learned that when I become emotionally entangled, I often lose sight of reality, and that can lead to poor decisions. I remember a time when a colleague tried to guilt-trip me into taking on additional work. At first, I felt the tug of obligation, but then I paused and reminded myself that I could choose how to respond. By creating that emotional buffer, I was able to assert my boundaries without feeling overwhelmed. Moreover, this practice of emotional detachment helps me maintain my sanity. Manipulative individuals can be relentless in their tactics, often preying on our vulnerabilities. By treating their actions with indifference, I manage to protect my mental space. It's not about being cold or unfeeling. Rather, it's about recognizing that their behavior is a reflection of them, not me. I've learned to remind myself, this is their game, not mine, which helps me stay grounded. Emotional distance also When I'm not emotionally invested, I can see the bigger picture more clearly. I can evaluate the situation without the fog of anger or frustration clouding my judgment. For instance, when someone plays the victim to gain sympathy, I can recognize that tactic for what it is, manipulation. This awareness allows me to respond thoughtfully, rather than impulsively reacting to their emotional ploys. Ultimately, establishing emotional distance is about empowerment. It's about reclaiming my agency in relationships that might otherwise leave me feeling drained or confused. The more I practice this, the more resilient I become. I realize that I can navigate these interactions with grace and strength, no longer a puppet on someone else's strings, but rather the one directing my own narrative. Identifying manipulative tactics. Recognizing manipulative tactics is a skill I've had to cultivate over time. Epictetus once said that it's easier to change someone's opinion than for an ostrich to change direction. This profound observation serves as a reminder that manipulation is often a deeply ingrained behavior. When I encounter someone using guilt, victimhood, or misinformation as tools to control the narrative, it's crucial for me to stay alert and aware. One tactic that frequently crops up is guilt tripping. I've seen this play out in various scenarios, where someone attempts to make me feel responsible for their feelings or circumstances. In those moments, I remind myself that their emotions are not my burden to carry. Understanding this distinction helps me to sidestep their manipulative designs. It's a liberating realization that frees me from unnecessary emotional entanglement. Another common tactic is the art of victimization. I've noticed that some individuals thrive on portraying themselves as perpetual victims, often to elicit sympathy or to divert blame. The moment I catch on to this pattern, I find that I can maintain my composure. Instead of getting caught up in their narrative, I can assertively redirect the conversation or set boundaries. This awareness is empowering. It transforms me from a passive participant into an active agent in the interaction. Disinformation is another manipulative strategy that can be. Some individuals twist facts or create elaborate stories to shape perceptions. When I sense that someone is not being truthful, I take a step back and critically examine the information presented. This critical lens allows me to discern fact from fiction, enabling me to respond with clarity rather than getting swept away by emotional reactions. Ultimately, honing my ability to identify these manipulative tactics has been a game changer. It allows me to navigate relationships with a level of confidence and assurance that I didn't have before. Each time I recognize a tactic, I reinforce my commitment to engaging authentically and maintaining my integrity. I become less susceptible to their games and more grounded in my own truth. The practice of detachment. Embracing the practice of detachment is perhaps one of the most liberating aspects of Stoic philosophy. Marcus Aurelius taught us that the things we possess are not truly ours. They are merely temporary. This perspective has shifted how I view relationships, especially those that are fraught with manipulation. Instead of clinging to the desire to change others or the situation, I focus on my own responses and maintaining my integrity. The idea of detachment doesn't mean I stop caring. Rather, it encourages me to differentiate between what I can control and what I cannot. I've found that the more I detach from the outcome of interactions, the less prone I am to frustration or disappointment. For example, when dealing with a manipulative friend, instead of trying to change their behavior, I concentrate on how I choose to engage with them, which ultimately preserves my emotional well-being. Practicing detachment also allows me to foster healthier relationships. When I am not overly invested in the actions or opinions of others, I can approach interactions with a C. This shift in mindset helps me to respond rather than react. I can listen with empathy, but I don't feel the need to absorb or internalize their emotional turbulence. This creates a more balanced dynamic where I can support others without losing myself in the process. Moreover, detachment cultivates a sense of inner peace. I've realized that when I let go of my attachment to specific outcomes, I experience less anxiety and fear. I am free to express myself authentically, without the weight of expectations. This newfound freedom allows me to engage in relationships more openly and honestly, creating a space for genuine connection rather than manipulation or control. In essence, the practice of detachment is about empowerment and self-preservation. It's about recognizing that the only thing I truly have control over is my response to others. By focusing on my own thoughts, emotions, and actions, I can navigate the complexities of human interactions with grace and strength, ensuring that I remain true to myself no matter the circumstances. The practice of detachment. You know, the Stoic philosophy has a lot to say about detachment, and it's something I've found incredibly useful in my day-to-day life. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most prominent Stoics, mentioned that the things you possess are not yours, but merely temporary. This resonates deeply, especially when dealing with manipulative people. When we encounter someone who tries to pull us into their web of control or deceit, it's easy to feel like we need to change them or the situation. But in reality, that desire is often rooted in a sense of attachment that can lead to frustration and emotional turmoil. I've come to realize that the best response to manipulation isn't to fight against the person or their tactics, but to focus on my own reactions. When I detach myself from the outcome of their behavior, it liberates me from unnecessary stress. Instead of getting caught up in their games, I remind myself that my integrity and peace of mind are what matter most. This doesn't mean I condone their actions. Rather, I choose to distance myself emotionally from their influence. It's like watching a movie. I'm aware of the plot, but I don't need to become part of it. One practical way to practice this detachment is to remind myself that I can't control others, only how I respond to them. When I feel the urge to change a manipulative person, I take a step back and assess the situation. Am I trying to impose my will on someone who's set in their ways? More often than not, the answer is yes. Accepting that I can't change them allows me to reclaim my focus, emphasizing my own values and reactions instead. Moreover, this detachment doesn't mean I shut myself off from others completely. It's about creating a healthy boundary. I've learned that when I keep my emotional distance, I can engage with people more authentically. I'm no longer reacting out of frustration or anger when I see their manipulative tactics. Instead, I can respond thoughtfully. This shift has helped me maintain healthier relationships, where I can still be present without losing my sense of self. Finally, as I embrace this practice of detachment, I find a sense of freedom. The emotional weight of trying to control others or the situation lifts off my shoulders. I can engage with the world around me while staying grounded in my values. This doesn't mean I'm indifferent to others. It just means I've learned to prioritize my own well-being over the chaos that can come from engaging with manipulative behaviors. Identifying manipulative tactics. Recognizing manipulative tactics is crucial in navigating relationships, especially when you're faced with someone who thrives on control. Epictetus wisely pointed out that it's easier to change someone's opinion than for an ostrich to change direction. This insight rings true in my experience. Once I became aware of the common manipulative strategies, I felt empowered to protect myself from being swept away by someone else's agenda. One of the first tactics I noticed was the use of guilt. Manipulators often play the victim, making me feel responsible for their feelings or actions. I remember a time when a colleague constantly blamed me for their shortcomings. At first, I felt compelled to appease them, but soon I recognized it as a manipulative tactic designed to shift the blame. By identifying this behavior, I could separate their issues from my own responsibilities, which was liberating. Another common tactic is gaslighting, where a manipulative person makes you question your reality or perceptions. I've encountered this in various relationships, where someone would deny facts or twist them to undermine my confidence. Recognizing this tactic I learned to trust my instincts and validate my feelings instead of getting caught up in their distorted version of reality. This shift not only bolstered my self-esteem, but also fortified my boundaries. Then there's the classic guilt tripping, where the manipulator employs emotional blackmail to achieve their ends. I've seen this in both personal and professional settings. Once I identified it, I realized how often I'd acquiesced to their demands out of sheer guilt. Now, I approach such situations by acknowledging that I don't owe anyone my compliance. I've reclaimed my power in those interactions. Finally, there's the tactic of distraction, where manipulators deflect from the main issue or create chaos to avoid accountability. I once had a friend who would change the subject whenever I tried to address their behavior. Recognizing this pattern allowed me to steer the conversation back to the core issue without losing my cool. By staying focused, I could engage more effectively and hold them accountable for their actions, rather than getting sidetracked by their attempts at misdirection. Emotional distance in interactions. Establishing emotional distance is essential when dealing with manipulative individuals. Marcus Aurelius advised us to focus on what is within our control, and this principle has been a guiding light for me. When I'm faced with someone trying to manipulate me, I consciously remind myself of what I can. This practice has not only helped me maintain my composure, but has also made my interactions more productive. One of the most effective ways I've found to create this emotional distance is by practicing mindfulness. When I feel myself getting swept up in someone else's emotional turmoil, I take a moment to breathe and observe my feelings without judgment. This pause gives me the space to assess the situation more clearly. Instead of reacting impulsively, I can choose a response that aligns with my values, rather than one driven by emotional reactivity. Additionally, I've learned the importance of setting clear boundaries. This doesn't mean shutting people out entirely, but rather communicating my limits. I recall a situation where a family member constantly tried to manipulate me into making decisions that suited them. By calmly asserting my boundaries, I was able to maintain my emotional distance while still engaged. It wasn't easy at first, but with practice, it became a natural part of our interactions. Emotional distance also allows me to approach situations with greater objectivity. When I detach myself from the emotional charge of a manipulative interaction, I can see the bigger picture. Instead of getting lost in their drama, I can focus on what really matters, my integrity and the outcome I want to achieve. This clarity helps me navigate challenging conversations without losing sight of my own values. Ultimately, establishing emotional distance has transformed my relationships. I no longer feel as if I'm at the mercy of others' emotional games. Instead, I engage with people from a place of strength and clarity. This shift has not only improved my interactions with manipulative individuals, but has also enriched my overall emotional well-being, allowing me to cultivate healthier connections. Resilience and self-control. Cultivating resilience and self-control is a cornerstone of my journey in D. Epictetus famously noted that it's not the things that happen to us that disturb us, but our opinions about them. This perspective has been my anchor. When faced with manipulation or emotional turmoil, I remind myself that my response is what truly matters. This shift in thinking has empowered me to maintain my composure even in the most challenging situations. One of the key aspects of building this resilience is practicing emotional regulation. I've learned that it's not about suppressing my emotions, but rather managing them effectively. When a manipulative person tries to provoke me, I take a step back and assess my feelings. Instead of reacting impulsively, I allow myself to feel the emotion, acknowledge it, and then choose how I want to respond. This conscious choice enhances my self-control and prevents me from being at the mercy of someone else's agenda. Another critical element of resilience is the ability to reframe negative sight. I often remind myself that every challenge presents an opportunity for growth. When I encounter manipulation, I view it as a chance to strengthen my boundaries and clarify my values. Instead of feeling victimized, I can embrace the situation as a learning experience. This mindset not only helps me navigate difficult interactions, but also fosters a sense of empowerment. Moreover, I've found that cultivating a strong support system bolsters my resilience. Surrounding myself with people who understand and respect my boundaries provides a sense of security. When I share my experiences with trusted friends or mentors, I gain valuable insights and perspectives. This network becomes a source of encouragement, reminding me that I'm not alone in facing manipulative behaviors. Finally, self-reflection plays a significant role in my journey toward resilience. After encountering a manipulative interaction, I take the time to reflect on my responses and emo. What worked? What didn't? This analysis helps me identify patterns in my reactions and areas where I can improve. By continually refining my approach, I'm better equipped to handle future challenges, reinforcing my self-control and emotional strength. Understanding human nature. Understanding human nature has been a profound aspect of my personal growth, especially in the context of dealing with manipulation. The Stoic philosophy emphasizes the importance of accepting that people will act accordingly. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that people will do what people do. This acknowledgement has been liberating for me. Instead of taking manipulative behaviors personally, I've learned to view them through a broader lens of human tendencies. In recognizing this, I've come to accept that manipulation often stems from insecurities and fears within the manipulator. When I encounter someone trying to control or deceive me, I remind myself that their behavior is more about them than it is about me. This understanding allows me to maintain a degree of empathy while still protecting my boundaries. It's easier to respond with compassion rather than anger when I recognize that their actions might be a reflection of their struggles. Moreover, this understanding of human nature helps me manage my expectations in relationships. I no longer approach people with the naive belief that everyone will act in my best interest. Instead, I've learned to navigate interactions with caution and awareness. This doesn't mean I distrust everyone. As we wrap up our deep dive into identifying and dealing with manipulative people through a Stoic lens, let's reflect on the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius, who reminded us that the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. So, how are your thoughts shaping your interactions with others? Are you allowing external influences to sway your inner peace? Epictetus taught us that it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This is your power. When faced with manipulation, remember to pause, breathe, and choose your response wisely. It's not about being reactive, it's about being proactive in maintaining your tranquility. Now think about your own life. Have you encountered someone who tried to manipulate you? How did you respond? Taking a step back can often reveal more than you realize. As you move forward, carry these Stoic principles with you. Reflect on your thoughts, your reactions, and your inner peace. What steps will you take today to cultivate wisdom and resilience in the face of manipulation? Join the conversation below. Share your experiences and insights, and let's continue to grow together on this journey of Stoicism. Remember, your mindset is your greatest ally.